Alright guys and girls, welcome to Clad Keeper's Garage. Today we're going to work on a blow dryer. Okay, got this blow dryer here. The cord has been cut. What happened was the cord developed an opening in the wire. Now where this wire goes in, this is called the strain relief here, where the wire goes into the strain relief, there's usually a lot of tension right there. That's where there's a lot of bending and flexing, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? If you ever had a cord develop an open on it, it's usually where there's a lot of flex in the cord, and that would be like this point right here. So one of these wires was broken right through, and what I did was cut the other one right off. But there's a lot of flexibility, and when you're flexing back and forth like that, what it does, it eventually just breaks the strands of the copper wire. They can only handle so much flexing back and forth, right, before they start breaking on you. So I cut this cord right here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take this blow dryer apart and take a look inside and see if we can fix it. Okay, so I already took the liberty of getting a screwdriver for these screws. It's a #1 Phillips head. And we're just going to back these screws out. Okay, so I'm backing the screws out. These are #1 Phillips head screws. And I see 2 of them here. Take this apart, and I only see 2 screws on the back. I don't see anything else around here, so I'm going to make an assumption that there's some clips in here that hold this plastic down, the purple to the silver housing right here. Sometimes you got to do a little prying and prodding with it to get these things to come apart. Okay, there we go. That's one side. Let me get the other. There we go. See, there's a couple of catches to catch on either side. There's 1, 2, 3 catches that holds the purple down to the silver. Okay. Alright, so I can see inside here we've got 1 wire soldered onto the switch, and the other wire was connected directly to this blue wire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that apart, and I'm going to take apart this blue wire here first. Okay. Now I've got a couple of different wire strippers here. Alright, they've got different sizes on them, on the cutters. This one here for smaller wires, right? From 22 gauge up to 30 gauge. And then I've got this one here that goes from 10 gauge up to 18 gauge. Right? So you want to use the right stripper, wire stripper for the job. You don't want to pull off any strands of copper wire. If you can prevent it, that's a good thing. Looking at the cords, as the cords go in here, now you've got this cord here, 2 black wires, right? Well, it's a 120 volt system, so 1 wire is going to be black and 1 wire should be white, right? According to the electrical codes. Okay, so when you're dealing with cord, right? It's not always 100% clear or it might not be to you, where the neutral wires. The neutral wire would typically be a white wire in a 120 volt system. And the way that they identify the neutral or the white wire in a cord like this is it's identified, right? If you look at this cord closely, you can see that there's ribs. There's ribs along here on one wire, and the other wire is perfectly smooth. The wire that's identified, or that has the ribs on it, that's going to be a neutral wire. Okay, and that's the wire that was connected to the blue wire inside the blow dryer. So this is your black wire right here, and it's soldered onto this switch. So now what I'm going to do is heat that solder up and desolder that connection. Okay, I've got a roll of solder here. This is rosin core, so it's got the flux inside the wire. I've got my solder pult right here. Right? This is for sucking solder off of usually off a PC board after you've heated it up when you want to disconnect something. And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to disconnect the wire on the switch. Okay, let's do this. We'll get the pan of ice. And I'm going to put this in the vise. Make it a little bit easier to work on these electrical connections. Okay. There's one shot. You can see that when I load the solder pulp, little pieces of solder come out onto the table here. Okay. I'm looking at this closely here. It looks like they've wrapped the wire around the terminal. So I've got most of the solder off there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the rest of this. Okay. Let's see if the solder's actually, it's loose. A little bit of wire is just loose onto the post right there, that switch. Let's see if we can't pull that right out. There we go. Okay, so that post is clean now, and that's where we're going to solder our wire back on. So now what I want to do is I want to replicate what they have here. They're both about the same length. So I'm going to strip these wires here back a little bit. This is how you separate them. Just make a little cut in between the two, and then you can pull them apart. Now I'm going to look at this here. I can see, you know, looks like they might have been an inch and a half. about an 1.5 inches long. I'm going to do the same thing, right? I'm going to pull this apart. They're about an 1.5 inches long, and I'm going to strip them back with my wire strippers. And go to the number 14. Okay. Okay, so I can see that I made an error right here, right? I used the number 14 slot in here. I probably should use the number 12. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to cut these two. You're only losing, you know, 1/2 inch or so of wire. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on the number 12 slot to strip these guys back. Because I saw that I had cut into some of the wires. You don't want to cut any of the wires out of the, you know, it's a multi-strand, it's a stranded cable. And the more wire you cut off of it, the less effective this is going to be. It's going to create more heat when you're using it. Okay, now I'm not going to do that bend right there, but what I probably should have done first was put my strain relief on. I'm going to do that now. I'll put the strain relief back on here, and let's see which way that goes. There's like a little keyway right here on the strain relief. Got a little keyway on the strain relief, and I want to see where that drops in to this housing. And it looks like this goes into the silver pot, so I just got to keep that in mind as I'm soldering this back together. Alright, so I know my neutral connects to the blue, and what I'm going to do now is get a little piece of heat shrink, put it over my neutral wire, or the identified wire, the one that's got the little ribs on it, and I'm going to make that connection. Just grab a little piece of heat shrink. Okay. Put the heat shrink over the wire. Now, I'm going to put this to the vise. Make sure that I get a really good connection here. It's not an easy one to do. Make sure you got solder coating all that wire, and it is. Okay. You want to make sure it's not too sharp either, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some pliers and just kind of go around, make sure that there's no sharp edge coming out that's going to poke right through the heat shrink, okay, and create a short circuit inside there. Okay, let's get a little bit of that. I'm going to slide this over there. and give it a little bit of heat. A couple different ways you can do it. I'm going to use a lighter here, but you can also use a heat gun, which I have, but this is the only shrink that I'm doing, so I'm not going to bother bringing that out. Okay. Now, we've got to make a connection between the hot wire and the switch right here. So I'm going to try to do what they did, and let me spin this a little bit here, twist this up. Okay, we've got it through. Now when you're doing this, you got to make sure you don't leave any stingers. Right, stringer might be just one little stray wire. I have one that's sticking up right here. Make sure it's all together before you solder it down. Okay. Make sure that that's soldered down good to the post. It's exactly the way the manufacturer had it. Start putting this back together. Switch in there. Alright, so when we go to put this back together, just want to make sure that all our switches are where they should be. You have to check the keyway, or just make sure that they're working before you close it up. Okay, so these two switches are working, and this shroud, I believe we're on here like this. Okay, and we'll put it all back together. Okay, got a few clicks there, that's a good thing. And there's always going to be a little bit of tension on the strain relief end. Kind of expect that. Alright, see what we got. Hot, medium, off. Okay. All right. So there you have it. We saved another one from the landfill. I'm going to blow the dust out of this with the air compressor, and I didn't think I caught it on film, but I blew out the dust that was in the blow dryer itself while I had it apart. All right. That's all I've got for you today at Clad Keepers Garage. See you again soon. That's a wrap.